Hello, everybody. It's Skelegun again, getting a twofer this weekend. Today, I will be talking about the 1989 horror film, The Dead Pit, which was directed by Brett Leonard. Brett Leonard also was one of the co-writers for the film. This film stars Jeremy Slate as Dr. Gerald Swan and Cheryl Lawson as Jane Doe. This film was Brett Leonard's directorial debut. His next feature-length film would be The Lawnmower Man, which also features Jeremy Slate playing the corrupt priest, Father McKean. Now, some of you may remember, The Lawnmower Man was the first movie I did a review for. So it's going to be interesting to, go and see if there's any kind of stylistic similarities or, any kind of just little things I can pick up on that kind of tie Brett Leonard's style together. And I will be watching this film on Amazon Prime. Now, according to the Amazon Prime description for the movie, a renegade doctor is shot dead and entombed with his fiendish experiments in the basement of an abandoned wing of a mental hospital. 20 years later, a mysterious woman is admitted with amnesia, and her arrival is marked by an earthquake, which cracks the seal of the dead pit, freeing the evil doctor to continue his work. So we've got the theme of the undead, we've got a theme of psychology, we've gotten a theme of mysterious woman. My expectations for the movie are that the mysterious woman is probably gonna be the daughter of the crazy scientist guy, or the other possibility is that it's all going to be in her head. Now, what I'm assuming is going to happen is that in the early parts of the movie, there's going to be sort of a thing where she notices all this crazy stuff happening, and at first they write her off as, oh, you're just a basket case, they're imagining all this. But then it's going to be obvious that, things really are happening, and they're going to start to believe her, but then maybe there might be a subplot where they start to suspect that she's involved somehow. And as for the psychology aspect of it, I'm assuming, because this is a movie from the 80s, it's a horror movie, it's probably not going to be very scientifically accurate. I can almost guarantee you there is going to be a scene where they're trying to show how they're gonna show somebody getting electroshock therapy, but it's just gonna be them getting zapped with a taser, because that's how people think electroshock therapy works, but it doesn't. And as for the undead, so he's in there with his experiments and he's brought back from the dead. One thing I noticed is that this movie doesn't seem to be billed as a zombie movie, which if they were trying to get a lot of people to watch this, they would bill it as a zombie movie, because zombie movies are... zombie fans will eat up any garbage whatsoever as long as it's tangentially related to zombies. So I have a feeling that the undead experiments aspect that are now free, I'm assuming they're going to be just a sort of minor plot element. They're not going to be very prominent. And I'm assuming that the Mad Doctor is probably just going to be stabbing people with a knife or cutting out their brain or something. That's about what I assume for those aspects. Now, for the production of the movie, one thing I noticed looking into this is that Cheryl Lawson, it was a name I'm not familiar with, so I checked her IMDb page. She has starred in a few movies. Well, she's been an actress, I should say, in a few movies. She, for the most part, though, has been a stunt actor or a stunt double in a ton of movies. That leads me to believe she may not be the best actress on the planet, so I'm going to have to look out for that. The only movie of hers that I've seen other than this is the movie The Vineyard, which is a very bizarre film that I watched a few years back. The Vineyard is very strange. I didn't really like it, and it was there was a vineyard, and these people went to stay there, and it turns out that it was run by some I think it was some ancient Chinese cult or something, and they were turning people into zombies and then turning the zombies into wine and then selling the wine. It was a really bizarre movie that didn't make much sense, and I didn't really like it. But anyways, so that's what I'm walking myself into, and I'll see you all on the other side. Peace. So, I just watched The Dead Pit. It's really bad. It's a really, really bad movie. Easily the worst out of the 6 or 7 reviews I've done so far. But I should get to the actual content of the movie, I suppose. So, some things I mentioned earlier, my predictions were mostly true. There wasn't an electroshock therapy scene. I was wrong about that, I'll admit that, but I was right about the thing about the mysterious woman being the daughter of the main villain. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I mean, once you have a basic understanding of how tropes work and stuff, that's kind of, you see where these kind of stories lead up. After that, acting in this movie was abysmal. It was really, really just horrendously bad acting on pretty much everybody's part. There wasn't a single good performance in the movie. The writing was really bad. For example, I'll give you some great examples of hilarious humor that was attempted in the movie. There's a scene where 2 cops are hanging out outside the mental hospital, and they're talking about their favorite donut shops. Get it? Because, cops like donuts. And there's another scene where the ghost zombie doctor says, "I'm the head doctor here," and then he pulls out a severed head from behind his back, and then later on he says, like, he has a line where he's like, "Dr. Swan wanted me to give you a piece of his mind," and then he pulls out Dr. Swan's brain and, like, holds it out. That's the kind of humor you're working with. This movie really feels like it was something that I wrote when I was, like, 14. It's a really bad movie. The acting, like I said, is terrible, and the main actress, lady, let me see, Cheryl Lawson, I really get the feeling that she was selected. She got this role mostly for her willingness to spend most of the movie wearing very little clothing and running around without support, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's it's an overall bad movie. The special effects were really god awful. The doctor zombie guy, after he comes back from the dead, in some of the frames some of the scenes he has really long fake claws, and in some of the scenes he has glowing red eyes, and then in other scenes he just doesn't. He just sometimes doesn't. One thing about the evil doctor guy that is, it's not really interesting, it's kind of like just stupid, is early on in the movie, shortly after he comes back, you get a close-up of his hand, and he puts on a ring that's like a scarab ring, and like an Egyptian scarab-looking ring. I thought maybe that would be explained later on, that maybe there's some sort of like Egyptian connection, like as to why he came back from the dead. You don't get anything explained in this movie. Basically, like, the closest thing you get to an explanation is that Doctor whatever, shortly before he ends up getting killed, was trying to study the connection between the, like, physical brain and mental illness, and somewhere along the line that he became twisted and obsessed with death. So in his, like, sort of basement laboratory hidden underneath the hospital, he would take patients and then perform inhuman experiments on them and kill them, and then just throw their bodies in a pit. And then Dr. Swan came down, like, found him in the act and shot him in the head. And then rather than, like, report it to the police, they just sort of boarded up this basement lab and went about their business. And 20 years later, the Jane Doe shows up. She's been arrested for wandering around the streets and not knowing who she was, so she's been made a ward of the state. She gets to the hospital, and it causes an earthquake, which causes the doctor zombie guy to come back. And for about the first hour of the movie, it's very boring. Not much happens. There's just, like, a bunch of like scenes of like Jane Doe walking around in her underwear, and then you get some scenes of the zombie doctor killing off staff members or patients, and it's just really boring. And then about an hour in, she decides she has to escape from the hospital, so her and this guy named Christian, who's like sort of another patient at the hospital, they decide to escape, and in the process she gets captured. She's brought to the the underground operating room, and then the doctor zombie guy unleashes his horde of zombies, because I guess they just left the bodies in the pit for some reason, so now there's this like massive army of zombies, and they take over the hospital and kill everyone there. And another big inconsistency is that the zombies are shown just to be like cliche zombies, and that they're just kind of like "Ooh," and they like shuffle around, and they like just have these like primitive clumsy attacks with their hands, but they just they grab you and then they like rip your head off kind of thing. But in some of the scenes, there's a scene where one of the zombies talks and like convinces someone to open a door, and it's like, and then as soon as they open the door, it's just a regular zombie, and then it attacks them. And then later on, when they're trying to escape, they find that the zombies have sabotaged all the cars in the parking lot. It's a really dumb movie. And then and so like I've mentioned earlier, there's the theme that it's all like a sort of scientific sort of thing going on, and then there's maybe the hint that it could be possibly Egyptian. But then the solution at the end of the movie is they use holy water. They have like this like former nun who's like one of the patients bless a water tower, and then they blow up the water tower, which causes the water tower to like tip over, and then all the water splashes out and covers the entire hospital, and the holy water just like melts all the zombies and the ghost doctor. And then they all live happily ever after, but then, no they don't, because then Jane Doe, her eyes are glowing red for some reason. It's a really dumb ending to a really dumb movie, and, it's really amazing when you think of, the perspective that, the next movie this director did was Lawnmower Man, which, while not a perfect movie, and it's an actual competent film, it has, style, and it has some pretty good acting on some of the actors' parts. It's not a perfect film, like I said, but it is a well-made movie, in my opinion. It's enjoyable. Meanwhile, this movie, which came out just prior to that, is a complete train wreck. It's hard to sing the praises of this movie, and I can't really recommend it to anybody. It's just a garbage film that was cheaply made. A lot of it is just kind of like, hey, look at, there's some, boobs, isn't that something? And then, look, there's some, really cheesy fake gore, ain't that cool? And it's like, yeah, if I was, a teenager, I might appreciate that again, but I'm not, so I don't. The Dead Pit is a bad movie. You shouldn't watch it. I wouldn't recommend it. I like to not be a negative Nancy, so I'm trying to think of any positives I can here. The only real positive I think I can come up with is that, no, I can't. I don't have anything positive to say about this film. It is just a garbage movie. If you want a good movie that is a horror movie set in a mental hospital, I strongly recommend you check out Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. I talked about Hellraiser and the series in general in my last review. Well, Hellraiser 2 Hellbound is an amazing film. It's much better and deals with a similar theme of being set in a mental hospital and having a sort of evil doctor who does inhuman experiments on patients. It's a much better film dealing with similar themes. So, yeah, I don't recommend this movie to anybody. I recommend, if you ever are in a situation where you have someone captured, you have a captive, and you're trying to torture them to get information, I would maybe say make them watch this movie on repeat until they tell you what you need to know. But I would also then sort of say that torture is not an effective method of gathering information, so even then I can't recommend this movie. Just go see Hellraiser 2 instead. It's so much better. So much better. That's about all for now. I wish I had better things to say about this movie, but I don't. So rather than dwell on how bad it is, I think I'll better go find something fun to do instead. So I'm not sure when exactly I'll be doing my next one. It'll be at some point this week, and it'll most likely be Come and See, the Russian World War II movie. I'm supposed to get it from the library, but it's been kind of delayed, I guess. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Come and See. If not, maybe I'll find another movie in the meantime I can watch. That should probably be at some point during this week. In the meantime, have a great rest of your weekend, and peace out.